Good evening, all my hairy little bipedal hominid fans. Tonight, we are going on an expedition looking for Bigfoot, making the case for Sasquatch, and there's only one person that I trust to do this. Well, I mean, the one person who agreed to do the show tonight, so that makes it a little bit easier. Stay tuned. We've got a great show lined up for you. We're going to be having Sasquatch discussions, taking your questions, and so much more. We'll do that when we return to the very best in paranormal programming. I'm Dave Schrader, and this is my Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney.
You won't know. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Hello, Darklings far and wide. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight as we begin the legacy reach for episode 400. Well, I mean, that's 199 away from now, but it starts with this step. Thank you for being here for the 200th. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed all of the emails and messages that you've been sending to me, voice messages, email messages, direct messages on social media. It has been very touching, and I've shared it with the rest of the crew. Everybody loves that you love the show and that you're making us a part of your lives. So thank you for doing that. It means so much to me. Tonight, let's talk Bigfoot. Why? Because Bigfoot is a hot topic. People love this topic. When we start discussing cryptids, I could talk about just about anything, and there's really only two that come to the top. The two that shine, that everybody wants to know more about. Bigfoot, he's number one. Mothman, he's number two. Tonight, not so much into the Mothman category, but we are going to discuss Bigfoot, and we're going to find out, does Bigfoot believe in Santa Claus? I don't know that our guest is going to know the answer to that, but I do want to tell you the holidays are right around the corner, like literally a few weeks away. And there are many of you out there, and I've met you, that have a young person in your life that you're trying to direct, that you want to help succeed and see that all things are possible. There's a book out that I want you to order right now. Well, I mean, wait till the show's over and then you can order the book. We'll have a link for it in today's program guide, but it comes from our guest. That's right. Just Wild Enough. Dr. Mireya Mayor, primatologist. You could check this book out. If you want to encourage your daughters or sons that they can do anything, this is a fantastic book that you can share with them that will give them insights and excite them into the concepts that they can start setting their goals now. And it is achievable, and see the amazing things that our guest has done in a fantastic and fun, informative, colorful book. And it's perfect to go into a stocking or just put underneath the tree or to give at a holiday party, however you want to do it. I know two young ladies that are watching this show right now. They're going to get a copy of this book from me. That's right. Sweet Tea and Jenny Monroe. You guys are going to get a copy. Just keep watching for it. That's right. Our own Sweet Tea. Let's get going with the beginning of the program, and welcome back to our program, Dr. Mireya Mayor. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. I am so honored to hear that I am your 200th episode guest.
You're our two. That's right. It would put us over on today's 201, but you would be the next guest over.
This means we've done it 200 other times.
That's right. So you've been a part of those other 200 times,
Yeah.
and here we are launching into this new realm. So technically, you're the first of the next 200.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I oh my gosh, truthfully love this book, and I think all people should get this if you have somebody in your life. And thank you for doing this and being available and making yourself open on books like this, because obviously your other book, which has been extremely well received and is sold out everywhere, that is written for adults and people to kind of learn more about you and your amazing background, from everything from a professional cheerleader to working with some of the most prestigious organizations in the world and traveling the world to put yourself in these places to research animals and their habitats. It's really cool, very exciting, and I wish I would have had these books available for my daughters when they were younger, because I think that would have gotten them off the couch a little bit earlier and maybe sneaking through our wooded backyard looking for some kind of bipedal monster.
Let me know when you figure that out.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I'm about 40 years into being a parent and still don't know what I'm doing. So
No,
I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for promoting the book. It's actually something that was really special to me, because I do share my story a lot, but generally it's, older, more sophisticated audiences, right? But I love the idea that we're getting, capturing them young, right? Little boys, little girls who suddenly maybe see themselves in me and want to pursue a career in exploration or science, and that means a lot to me.
It's fantastic, and it's great that you make it so accessible. I've had the opportunity to be to a couple of the different conferences where you're there, and the one thing I love hearing is when people will come over after I've introduced you, you go up and do your spiel, they'll come up and say, "Oh my God, she was amazing. That was a great talk. I learned so much in that 1 hour that we got to share with her. And when are you going to have her on your show next?" People absolutely adore you because you don't have that pretense of being a science nerd, to the sense of it's just you talk over their heads. You really break it down and make it easy for people to enjoy and understand and go along that journey with you.
Thank you. No, I think it's super important, and I wish more scientists would take it upon themselves to really care that the science is accessible. Otherwise, you're preaching to the choir at scientific conferences, or you're not kind of making it accessible to people. And isn't that kind of the point? Because otherwise you're just operating in a vacuum.
Agreed. Now, for those of you that have been living in a cave with Sasquatch and are not familiar, our guest is part of the TV show Expedition Bigfoot, which you can watch on Discovery Channel, also on Discovery Plus, and now on the Max streaming service. They're out there and available. And what do you guys just wrapped up fourth season?
Correct.
Fourth season, correct?
I'll take over here, Dave. No, I'm just kidding.
Please do.
Season 4 just aired finished airing on Discovery Channel, and then it's on streaming network on Discovery Plus. But yeah, this season we headed off to Alaska, which was pretty incredible. Everything is wilder, everything is bigger. It was the first time in my life where I was on a terrain where you feel like a tiny ant on the planet. It's pretty cool place.
Well, no, that says a lot, because you've been all over this planet and rainforests and jungles, and to put you here. But is that part of it, because it is so barren in so much of the area that it just feels like you're almost on an alien terrestrial area?
So I've worked in the Amazon, I've worked in different parts of Africa, Madagascar, kind of all over. For me, it was the sheer vastness of the landscape, and those open, like up on a glacier. I mean, it's just white for miles and miles and miles in every which direction. And you feel just absolutely tiny in that landscape.
Is it strange to go from like the Pacific Northwest and some of these amazing sites around the continental, 48 contiguous states here, and then go off somewhere where you're in a much more isolated area where there are all of these rumors of Bigfoot attacks and very aggressive sightings of this creature?
Yeah, so it's one of the interesting things that as I started talking to people in Alaska, so many of the stories were so much more aggressive in nature. Like their reports, people gone missing in the woods, and even the talk of people being lured into the woods. It was a very different, when you look at what, as you mentioned, the remoteness of where we were, the animals are all bigger and wilder. In fact, it's the first time in the 4 years that we've been working together as a team that we actually felt it necessary to have bear guards with us. None of us are ever armed on the expeditions. And we rely on sort of our experience and with animals and in different situations where we haven't felt it necessary to carry any weapons. This was the first time where we knew that, these animals don't come across people as often as, say, working somewhere in Washington State, right? Where bears more often than not have come across humans walking around. So there was definitely a difference in that regards.
Is it, I mean, obviously knowing that there are different, I don't want to say species because that's not what I'm going for, but there are different ways that animals, especially gorillas and a lot of the great apes and monkeys and things, will react. You know, we see videos of cute little chimps rolling around in their diaper and playing in little spider monkeys, and even some gorillas that just
in the wild, the diapers, but sure.
Right, well, I mean, but we see these videos of people doing it, and it gives a lot of false perception to people of just how strong, powerful, and
absolutely.
dangerous they still can be.
I hate when I see those videos because it sends so the wrong message. The truth is that yes, you know, chimps are really cute and friendly when they're babies, but then when they hit sexual maturity, all bets are off and they can get extremely aggressive. And, you know, chimps, gorillas, they are unbelievably muscular. I mean, if you've ever stood even at a zoo and looked at a gorilla, they are all muscle. They could tear you apart in without even thinking about it. So absolutely, like those videos are very misleading, let's just say. And that goes for the little primates as well. I mean, they might look really small and cute, but they've got nice big canines and they can be very aggressive as well.
Is it surprising to you to see that animals that are kept in captivity, like the great apes, the gorillas, when things have fallen into the pens with them, how maternal or paternal they seem towards that and take care of those people until they can get help?
And that doesn't surprise me. You know, I've spent a lot of time, like for example, in Congo, observing Western lowland gorillas, which are the only gorilla that are in captivity. So those are the ones that you see in zoos. And it's remarkable that actually you watch the silverback with the young ones, and they are very much extremely paternal and teaching them everything and very gentle. And then of course the female gorillas, the mothers, they are as well. So these animals are so intelligent, they're highly social, that I think that when you see some aggression from them, it's basically because they feel some sort of threat. When you've seen it on you know, on the news where like a child falls into an enclosure, they don't see that little kid as a threat. And yeah, their instincts, sort of the protective instincts, seem to kick in. But they are, you know, supremely intelligent. When you look into the eyes of a gorilla, like, you know that they're really looking back and studying you as much as you're studying them.
I guess what's always impressed me about that is the fact that you would think they know, maybe they don't, maybe some were just born in captivity and have no concept of what it's like out there. But to know that you're confined to this little area and that there's so much more beyond the confines of those walls, you would think that they would be the more aggressive of the creatures, because their very small territory is being invaded, and this thing landing in their territory probably means more of you things are going to try to come in here. But it always astounds me to see the kindness. And I'm sure there's stories that haven't gone that way, that don't make the news as readily. But it is still pretty impressive to think that in captivity, they're even not more docile, but that they're not more aggressive in nature.
And it's like you point out, now the gorillas that we see present day are zoo. That's the only sort of landscape and habitat that they've ever known. But that doesn't mean like the wild in them has been taken out. So listen, if you fall in, you better hope that you have a really maternal figure in there that wants to cuddle you before you're rescued. Because I've seen other situations. In fact, I've been involved in other situations where, like, you know, one of my trackers got his kneecap bitten off. And this was in the wilds. This was a gorilla sort of known for being real bitchy. Am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah.
She was very, very moody. And everybody seemed real calm, and you get a little complacent after you've worked with gorillas for a while. You sort of become one of the group, and you trust the same way that they trust you. And this one waited just on like the right moment to just grab and take a big chunk out of his leg. Yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. And then I've had others that's again come up to one of my trackers and rip the shirt right off his body, like in the movies, like one swipe, it's gone. So you do get, sort of, that's the thing. The beauty with gorillas is that they all have very distinctive personalities. So you might get one that, is real shy. You'll get another one that's kind of funny, has a good sense of humor. I really like those. And then you have ones that they're pretty mean. I mean, they could just be outright mean. For the most part,
you have footage.
Strong.
You have footage that you've shown at the conferences I've been with, where you were tracking one and suddenly it had its fill that day of some of the female gorillas, I think you said, and it postured and you kind of started to back away and it began the charge.
Yeah, I've been charged by gorillas. I really wish I had a count, but like dozens and dozens of times. This charge was different. Like when they bluff charge, they're bluffing, and your adrenaline, like no lie, no matter how many times you get charged by a gorilla, like your adrenaline soars. It's a pretty intense moment, but you also know that that's what they do. They're just reminding you that that's their territory, and they do it at a sort of a comfortable distance. It's all good. This one I knew meant business because of how, his posture, everything about him, the look. And in that moment where I realized that he was really going to charge, I started backing up very quickly. And he, almost in one leap, landed exactly where I had been standing.
Yikes. Well, that kind of leads me into where I wanted to go with the discussion of Bigfoot is, as you said, there are so many different personalities and traits to these different great apes. Do you find that territorial wise, there is a kind of a personality or an aggressive nature towards these creatures wherever they are? So
if you take, let's say, a great ape, like gorillas, as an example, mountain gorillas are much less aggressive. Not to say that Western lowland gorillas are aggressive. They're pretty gentle animals, but the Western lowland gorillas will show a lot more aggression. And that completely has to do with the different habitats that they're in. When you think about mountain gorillas, right? In Rwanda, like Diane Fossey's favorite or famous site, when you're approaching mountain gorillas, they can see you for miles and miles coming because it's all open. They have vantage points. You're not as threatening in that sense because you're not just coming onto them and startling them. Whereas in a habitat like the Western lowland gorillas, that is so dense, where literally you could have a whole family of gorillas just a few feet away from you and not see them because it's just like walls of vegetation. You are much more likely to startle them and get a very negative response. The other factor that can't be ignored is that they've been hunted for, over a century. So they don't trust people. You can't blame them.
Right.
So they're going to be much more alert and more aggressive when they have a human interaction.
Do you think that after startling them, they ever go back to their clique of gorillas and they're like, I saw a hairless gorilla, this petite hairless gorilla walking around like we are their Bigfoot? Do you think there's any kind of that, or
totally.
Are they well aware of the human race?
Did you get a picture? No, man, it's blurry. I got a blurry one. No, it's terrifying. No, for sure. But it's really like the wilder the space. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's two components. One is that an animal's been had a lot of negative interactions, like say with humans, and they're going to react very aggressively. But the flip to that is that they've had very little interactions with human, and all of a sudden, they're scared. It's a threat. I mean, we're not necessarily tiny creatures, and it provokes like a fear response. Which there's two ways it can go, right? Flee or fight. And there's been situations I've been in where I see the gorilla just takes off running. And then there's others where they don't, and they just hold their ground. And so I suppose you could attribute all of these differences in eyewitness reports about behavior. You could take a look at the habitat or sort of the human population, the density, all of these things, and see if that correlates.
we had a story a number of years ago, and it's very cloudy. I'm gonna have to dig it out again and see if I can find it. I'll send it to you if I can find the audio version we did of it. But it was a guy that was in a remote cabin, and he had come out and saw a baby bear, and he was like, "Oh, not going out today," because you don't want to get in that way if mama bear's out there.
Right. Yeah.
And he heard just the craziest noises. And I guess he was witness to the baby bear trying to play with a Sasquatch, and the Sasquatch was kind of batting it away when out of nowhere came mama bear, and they just went at it. They this reported Bigfoot and this bear are just battling it out, literally tooth and claw, in this moment.
That would be an amazing show, wouldn't it? Like, there's always like Jaws versus dolphins or whatever, like they team up. This would be a bear versus
Sharks and the Jets. Yeah.
So did they say who won?
I think I remember our guy won. Bigfoot. I think he it's been a while. I can't remember for sure. I think he hurt the baby. I think
it was Bigfoot against a baby bear.
Well, the baby bear, like you said, was messing with the Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot kept like tossing him away, trying to get him to leave him alone.
Right.
And that's when the mom charged. Yeah, the mom charged, and I think that's when all hell broke loose. But so when you hear a story like that, it sounds almost comical, like Godzilla versus Kong, but it also makes sense, right? I mean, if there are creatures in the woods and they're crossing each other's paths, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you have different species out in the woods that merge over, in a habitat, very rarely are they, what we would say symbiotic, right? Where they're helping each other out and they're just like coexisting. It could, especially if you're talking about territorial animals, or in the case of like a mother with young, you're going to have like negative interactions for sure.
If you were to cross the path of a Sasquatch, just round the corner, there it is. You're not bringing weapons most of the time. You're out there just trying to document and collect samples. You come across one that seems to be popping up and looking at you. What is your first action?
Take a selfie.
I was expecting so much more from science. Come on. No, seriously,
that is part of the science. Like, documenting is a huge thing, and it seems to be like a real, problem in this area.
You realize you're most likely just going to have a picture of your own eye as this thing's batting you away like a ping pong ball.
No, I would definitely make sure to get more Bigfoot in that shot. But honestly, it's one of those situations where, now in all seriousness, like as a scientist, the most important thing you could do is observe, right? Like, note everything. And that's one of the things, like, you teach kids, like, you go out there, you take a notebook and you record everything. So in that situation, you want to record everything, like try to figure out, like, size, behavior, are there other group members, like as much information as you could possibly take in. But you need the picture.
Yeah, well, obviously you need the picture, but
pluck a hair sample if he doesn't look too mean, I guess.
But you pretend you show like you want to give him a hug, and when he comes in, you just tug a little hair.
Exactly.
But see, that's part of why I don't like the outdoors. There's too many crazy rules with animals. Some you have to look big and mean. Some you're supposed to be subservient and just hold your hand out. I'm just afraid I'm going to cross the wrong one.
Even within the bears, right?
Yeah.
Like you either play dead or you act real threatening. You better get that one right.
Right. How do you know? In that moment, the Rolodex in my brain is just worried about not dying, well, if I recall correctly, the black bear prefers to be. That would be the terrifying aspect.
My notebook, right? That's not the time. But the thing is, and I think that's one of the cooler aspects of this, is that there really is no textbook on it. There's a lot of conflicting reports and stories and all of these things, but there's no real scientific textbook on that sort of thing. And I think it's what makes it kind of even more exciting. And the truth is even when there is textbook, nothing trumps like experience and being out in the field and making what are, sort of animal observations on their behavior. So you could, for example, read that you're supposed to act submissive and eat leaves and crouch and do all these things, but you might be in a situation where that is the totally wrong thing to do. So I think a lot of it also just is in situ, kind of following your gut and making that decision.
I'm pretty sure if you took me out along with your crew, I would be the C-3PO of the entire thing.
I would love to take you out with the crew, Dave. I mean,
I don't know about
that. I'll take you out there.
Craziness. we have to take just a very quick break. We'll come back. We've got more to discuss. We'll do that right after this. Hey, folks, if you're a Sasquatch lover like I am, go check out the Paranormal 60 swagshop.com. You can check out all of our cool Bigfoot swag. We've got notebooks, we've got wrapping paper, we've got t-shirts. There are amazing fun designs, lots of cool items to choose from. Go check out Paranormal 60 Swag Shop right now. Hey, with the holidays upon us, this is a perfect time to get the gift, that last minute gift you want to stick in the stocking or underneath the tree or bring to a friend at work, at home, neighbors, whatever. Maybe just stick it in their mailbox next door so that they get the surprise of a lifetime. Just Wild Enough by Dr. Mireya Mayor is available, and we have a link for it on today's program guide. This is a great book for children and a great way to introduce them to seeing outside of the box they currently live in, giving them the inspiration and hopefully the idea to want to be more and do more and see more. So check it out, get a copy of the book for yourself, and then share it with your favorite child. All right, we are back. Let's get into the season. Was exciting. Going to Alaska, you guys had come off of last season having found dens and different sightline dens and hair and having sent things in and getting some really interesting findings back. That's an interesting point to jump off from as you head to Alaska. But is it frustrating as a researcher to be like, okay, we just found this, maybe we should just focus here for another year?
And that is true of any expedition, no matter what you're doing. What I think is important to keep in mind is that when an expedition ends in the field, that's sort of when the science begins in a sense, because now you have all of these samples and all of these different things that require a lot more study and requires time. So there does come a point where and this happened to me time and time again, where you have to leave the field and that component, but that doesn't mean like the research stops. It really is sort of another beginning point to that research. To answer your question, there's been numerous locations, or at least two favorite of mine, where I would love to return, because I think that the findings were intriguing and very intriguing and worthy of like further investigation in those areas. Problem is that we also have to follow the findings and also follow timing of different things, like when food sources are available, when recent sightings are happening, just different things that may not tie back to that place that we were. Some places just sort of dry up, and there's maybe that animals are moving away, their food resources are drying up, all of these different things. So then an area that feels like a hot spot suddenly goes cold. And so it's time to go anyway, even though at one point it really felt like you just wanted to stay there and dig in further.
Now, going to Alaska, having this kind of new terrain to investigate, hearing these stories of a more aggressive, possibly more violent Bigfoot, what trepidations did you have going into this, and what things excited you most about the new explorations?
For one thing, it was the first time that I'd spent time in Alaska, and I was really just really excited about getting into a place where animals are known to be wilder and bigger, and certainly the habitat could support such large animals and bigger populations. So that to me was like the real drive. The other thing is that what led us there was sort of interesting. I mean, this very rare wolf species that only occurs in one part of Alaska. We had such a sort of a target zone to launch the investigation. You don't often have that. I mean, there's a lot of times where you show up to a place and you kind of have to figure out like what feels like the right place to start and let it unfold. We knew exactly where we had to go. And so it was great to see then, based on what we were seeing and finding and talking to people, like where it led us.
There are so many different claims of people that have gone missing, sometimes large groups of people, 3, 4, 5 people in a group that just, there's never any sight of them again, but they happen to be in an area that people have witnessed or believe they've witnessed a Bigfoot creature. I want people to also get a full understanding. I know you're about the science. There's a lot of danger in Alaska, and there's a lot of places that have nothing to do with why you would vanish that has to do with Bigfoot, right?
I mean, most of the time when you're on an expedition, you're the least to worry about is like the wildlife. It's more the terrain, the weather, hypothermia, overheating, and just injuries. And because on an expedition you are so intently focused on something, and you're so really fatigued and tired from day in and day out trekking, lack of sleep, all of this stuff, it really does make it like super conducive to injuring yourself. And that's like the biggest danger that I see. I actually helped write a book for National Geographic on a survival handbook. And it's one of the things that I really talk about, like staying calm in different scenarios, whether it's, wildlife, or if you have been injured or anything like that, because you can't make good decisions if you're not thinking straight. And that's like a big danger while you're out there, because a lot of times people make sort of irrational, not good decisions in those moments, and it costs them their life. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is just injuries. And we had a lot of them in Alaska. In fact, I know when we were in Kentucky, our cameraman, Zach, suffered a pretty bad knee injury. But that was about the only real injury that we'd had in these 4 years. In Alaska, we had a cameraman who fractured several ribs and had to be taken out, medically evacuated. There were a few more injuries. And then I had actually a double, like 2 ligaments in my ankle that I tore towards the very end of the expedition. And that was brutal. So yeah, there's a lot to contend with when you're out there. And a lot of that honestly does have to do with how just physically tired you are of trekking day in and day out. And then, yes, you got the bears and the wolves and all the other stuff, which
right, all the fun stuff.
Potential danger too.
Where do you sit now, this part of your journey, 4 seasons in, coming in as somebody who has an interest in looking at the science of these situations? Do you find yourself further along on the belief path that something like a Bigfoot does exist, or are you still pretty far from that point?
So I never use the word belief when I'm talking about Bigfoot, because I save that for like religious stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for tangible, irrefutable evidence that's going to really move that scientific needle. I came into this with an open mind. I feel like having an open mind is incredibly important in science, period, and having curiosity and wonder. I mean, that's like at the heart of science. Right. But I have to tell you, the one that all remains true. The one thing that has changed is that if you look back at our first expedition, I definitely was quicker to dismiss, the high strangeness of it all. Like, because it just, there was no scientific explanation for it. I didn't really understand why there was this connection that people kept reporting with Bigfoot sightings. And what I have noticed is that over the years, I'm seeing a lot of these patterns. And once now you start looking at patterns, it does make a big difference. You as a scientist, you then pay more attention, because now it's a pattern. Why, why, if it happens once, if it happens twice, chance, but what is the probability that it keeps happening over and over and over? And so now I don't dismiss that stuff as quickly. I don't call it evidence, because it's not, but it does seem to lend itself to piecing this very mysterious puzzle together.
There's interesting footage that pops up throughout the year of strange phenomena that seems to be related. I've seen a lot this year myself. The one that intrigued me most, probably you're aware of, is the footage from Colorado, where the being came walking along and then seemed to crouch, and it was so eloquently built and made that it actually just kind of blended into the background.
You mean the train sighting?
Yeah.
So that footage, right, it was kind of exciting to watch all that unfold. But if you pay really close attention to it, there's a lot of things that for me stood out as like non-animalistic and just sort of red flags. And then a little while ago, a few weeks ago, the people who claimed to be responsible for that actually admitted to putting on a costume and making it a fun day for the people, passengers in the train coming by. So that
I've heard that vacillate back and forth even since it began, that somebody was claiming to it, and then they were like, no, there's no proof that they did that. Nobody can provide a costume. None of this is taking place. And then the belief was that they're saying that so that people don't start infringing on that area and upsetting Bigfoot. And
so who knows? But just based on the footage alone, to me, it was more hoax human than an animal or hominid or anything like that. But I think still arguing about it.
the takeaway for me that I thought was most impressive is how we can easily dismiss, oh, there's no way that we wouldn't be coming across these. And even if it's somebody, a human in a costume walking through there, you saw as a perfect example how easy it is for something that knows its surrounding to camouflage itself. And it literally just kind of bent down and looked like a bush.
And that I would not argue, because I've seen that repeatedly in nature, where even like a very massive animal can completely blend into its environment, and you'd miss it.
Yeah, and if people are still having problems with that, just follow me in any nightclub. I vanish. Nobody seems to notice me. I just stand there looking wild-eyed and crazy, and then people just walk right past me. It's unbelievable. That's my take on it. I could be wrong. All right. Do you think 5, 15, 25 years out from one way or another proving or disproving the existence of this creature?
I mean, that's like the really exciting part about science, is you don't know. Like I've been out in the field in areas where I felt like there was a very strong possibility of making scientific discoveries, and we have. And then I've been in areas where I wasn't even really looking for a new species, because I didn't know there was a new species there to be looked for, right? And then discovered a new species. So with science, I hugely believe in muddy boots for this kind of stuff, right? Like you have to be out there, you have to be out in the field, and you have to be searching. And it could really happen at any time. And that's really, to me, the allure and the cool factor is it could potentially be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or it could be next month, tomorrow. I mean, you just have to be out there, and it has to be that right place at the right time. But if you're not out there, it's never going to happen. And that's why I keep going out there.
There are so many people in the woods carrying weapons, shooting deer, shooting elk, shooting bear, shooting whatever, that to me, the improbability of not having killed one and been able to carve off an arm or a foot or even a hand just to bring it back seems so unbelievable to me. And, we're killing animals with our cars left and right. These things jumping out in front of people's cars. That's the aspect of that to me that's still so hard to believe they exist. and they very well could just be incredibly smart and just know better than to mess by the roads, and especially at specific times of day or night. So that could be why it's there, and they're well aware of people in their area. I've also heard that the common theory for a while was that they post centuries, so that there's a collection of them, and then there are guards, if you will, and as they see the people coming, they'll just continually back up. So you're never, even if you're in the thick of their den, you'd never know it, because they're continually moving away from you until you retreat, and then they'll come back to their area. Do other animals show that behavior, especially in the primate category?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, chimps, for example, will organize themselves in where different animals have different roles. And if you look at the examples of where they hunt, right? You have like the drivers that drive the prey in one direction. Then you have the ambushers. Then you have the actual ones that do the kills. I mean, so they all have these roles to play in these groups. And depending on, depending on the social group size of these animals, obviously there's safety in numbers, and you see that a lot with these, like, we're talking more like herd animals, but where you do have that, right? Like sort of the ones at the outskirts of the group keep the entire group safe by pushing them further and further away from any sort of danger around. So you do see examples of that.
And we've heard the many different variations of the whoops, the calls, the what they call the samurai chatter. So much of it is, I'm not an outdoors guy, but sometimes people will play, you got to hear this, Dave. You got to hear this Bigfoot.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I do. Let me hear it. And I'm listening. It's all, and I'm like, I'm no zoologist, but that kind of sounds like a coyote or a wolf. No,
Right.
no, it's, as a matter of fact, it's mimicking the wolf. And I'm like, it's what? It's pretending to be a wolf to throw me off. Yeah. Well, how do you know that? Well, it's not the right octave for a wolf. How do you know the wolf hasn't been smoking and drinking whiskey for years and he's just got a lower? Seriously, I mean, that to me is so. And there are so many of the Bigfooters and Squatchers out there that they will stand by that this is what it is, that it completely breaks from reality, my opportunity and desire to want to know more about their research. But when we've heard some of these, are there noises that have been cataloged that do not match known creatures that do exist?
So my understanding is that there is call it a library of these vocalizations that have been identified. I mean, sort of using the same equipment as the Cornell lab, right, which is famous for being able to identify all of these different sounds, and they have quite a massive library that say that there are some of these sounds that are inconclusive, right? So that nothing that they know of out in that area would make that sound. And then, of course, you do have examples in nature of animals that mimic other animals. So also not too crazy an idea. Even parrots can like really mimic, their owners or somebody else, but like actual birds that to a T can mimic other birds to, distract a predator or that sort of confuse them. So it's that to me is like, it's slightly more unlikely. I know that vocalizations play a really big part in primate research, and we use it quite a lot. Like we'll make a sound and then we get a call back and that sort of thing. I'm pretty familiar with the sounds of the animals that are in the forest of the areas that we work in. And I have to say that there was one particular sound in Alaska that I never want to ever hear again, that I could not attribute to any known animal. In that we didn't have let's call it a high quality enough recording of it that we could like really get down to the nitty gritty and analyze it. But it was different. It was definitely, it was like nothing I'd ever heard before. And I think a lot of people do make that claim. And I think that there are many, many instances where they're not right. Like it was a wolf or it was a coyote or it was, you know, like there's a real explanation for it that we know about in nature and can identify. But my thinking is, well, you only need one of those to be right for it to be a reason to keep on the pursuit of trying to find what's out there.
Do you know, Dr. Mayor, has it ever been tested where you take some of these, and I use the term loosely, known Bigfoot sounds to animals? Like this was recorded in the Pacific Northwest. What if I take it and I play it for bears that are in captivity that are from the Pacific Northwest? If I play it for werewolves,
like what reaction would you get?
Yeah, do they get a reaction?
That's a great question, Dave. I don't know that anybody's ever done that, and I have to be honest. Like I'm a little on the fence when I get given a recording and say, oh, you know, this is a Bigfoot vocalization from this area, play it and you'll get a response. I don't know. Like I wasn't there. I didn't record it. I don't know the source. Things are very easily also like, you know, fake nowadays. So I don't put a whole lot of trust in that. I mean, I'm open to it, but it's not really something that go ahead.
That's and I understand that, but there's a lot of these things that we can say, photographs, video, we could fake so much of this now. But where's the starting point? It seems like one of the easiest would be to see what animals from that region would respond to that noise. Not trying to call another Bigfoot by playing that, but how other animals react. Does a bear that's known to be very dominant in that area hear the woo, 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 and that bear just drop and go to a cave? Does it pique its curiosity, or does it not even register to these animals? That to me is kind of an interesting.
I don't know that anybody's ever. I mean, like I'm not aware. I'm not saying it hasn't been done. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it. But that would be an interesting way to test some of these.
All right, let's do it. You and me. Let's go hang out at the zoo.
I mean, I was gonna say,
I'll bring the boom box and I'll start say anything. All the different animals.
We'll go to the zoo first, and then we'll go out into the woods. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll start in the zoo.
Okay. We'll start
baby steps. Baby steps. I have to take one more quick break. We'll come back. We've got a little bit more to discuss when we return right here on the Paranormal 60. Innovation, creation, vitality, and joy are the pulse of mysoultopia.com, with many custom creations for the mind, body, and spirit, along with classes, intuitive sessions, coaching, and healing energies. mysoultopia.com strives to bring sophistication with a twist to the metaphysical and the holistic market, while raising the community's vibration and channeling the new paradigm, which means new and exciting adventures for all. mysoultopia.com is utopia for your soul. Visit mysoultopia.com, your one-stop shop for all your metaphysical needs, offering hand-selected crystals and crystal jewelry with prices to fit every budget. mysoultopia.com offers the best selections of tarot and divination cards by top designers, expertly curated and award-winning book collections from top authors on every subject you'll need on your spiritual journey. mysoultopia is also proud to offer the finest singing bowls and an eclectic collection of the most amazing gemstones, crystals, and crystal jewelry from the top metaphysical designers in the world. mysoultopia.com is always your one-stop shop for award-winning mixes of Florida water, sage spray, and other spiritual protection. So begin your journey with the best resource, mysoultopia.com. That's mysoultopia.com. Why mess with the rest when you can start with the best? mysoultopia.com. Again, that's mysoultopia.com. Fourth season of Expedition Bigfoot is available, as all the preceding seasons are, on Discovery Plus and the Max streaming service. You can watch the show on Discovery. Please go check this series out. And again, folks, I implore you, if you have a favorite show and you want to watch that show and you want it to continue to be successful, this is what you need to do. When the show's released, watch it in the first 24 to 48 hours of release. that is a crucial time. If you wait and binge them all at the end, yay for you. Say goodbye to your favorite shows. What the TV audience has to show is that they're engaged immediately when these shows are released. So if you're like me and you love to binge when all the shows are done, turn on Expedition Bigfoot, go out and mow the lawn, shovel the driveway, go wrap some holiday presents, then come back, turn it off once it's aired. That way it counts. You're not cheating the system because you are going to go back and watch it, but it at least counts for now. And not just with Expedition Bigfoot, but any of the shows that you love. It is crucial that you watch them within the first 24 to 48 hours. I'm now off my soapbox. Let's get back into the discussion here. Again, this is, I love having the opportunity to kind of talk and work our way through this. And, you know, I've spoken about Bigfoot for years, and I believe I saw Bigfoot when I was a child. So I'm still very open to the concept.
You think you saw Bigfoot when you were a child?
Yeah. Yeah. And my audience is probably bored sick of me mentioning it. But yeah, I was about 12 years old in Foley, Alabama. And my cousin and I were fishing in my grandfather's pond when we heard something big coming through the woods, just walking through the woods. And at the back of the pond, this hairy hand reached up over the top of the bush and pushed it down. And we could see from the tip of the nose up this dark inset face with this, I called it the Barry Gibb hair. It had this kind of blackish gray, big pompadour, and it just kind of looked at us. My cousin and I, it takes that minute when your brain sees something you're not expecting to see, you just can't process it. And then finally we looked at each other and ran up to the house. I never put two and two that it was a Bigfoot together until years later, or possibly a Bigfoot. My dad, my uncle, my grandfather, my cousins all grabbed their rifles and went out there in case somebody was screwing around on the property that didn't belong there. And nobody went out to look where it stood to see if there were footprints. So there was, you know, missed opportunities. I can honestly say I've been to zoos, I've been outdoors. I've never seen anything remotely like what it was I saw, but it didn't speak to me. It didn't telepathically send me a message for a peanut butter sandwich. It didn't warn me away. My cousin and I just saw it and, you know, froze and then ran like Scooby-Doo up the hill to get away from it. So, you know, again, I was 10, 12 years old. So it was like 10 years ago, and I could have faulty memory. Why is that so funny, Dr. Mayor?
Well, I was thinking more like 15 years ago, but go on, Dave.
Okay. Oh, sure. But it was so many years ago, I even questioned that memory of what exactly did I see and how did I experience it? So it's tough for me to go into that, but it's kept that fire and passion alive in me. And having had a chance to talk to Bob Gimlin and hear some of the other remarkable stories from people that I know, like, and trust, who I believe have had real encounters with something, whether they're misidentifying it and it is a bear with mange or whatever it might be. I believe that they are having some kind of.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that for me is like the most compelling is when I get, you know, whether it's emails or messages or whatever, but it's people who, you know, retired military, police officers, psychologists, teachers, people who say, I haven't shared this with my wife of even, you know, 30 years, right? During our 30-year marriage, I haven't had the guts to tell her about this experience. And they start opening up to you about what they experienced. And you could really feel still like that visceral response from them as if it was happening in that moment. And I don't know what they saw, right? There's no way for me to know what they saw, but I know that they believe they saw what they're saying they saw. So I don't, and Jane Goodall, I don't know if you saw, I interviewed, and I've had a lot of, we filmed an interview with her, but I've had many, many conversations with her about this. And she is the same. She has so many Native American friends who she loves and trusts, really honest people who she's like, you know, they wouldn't lie. They, you know, nobody knows exactly what they saw, but they're not lying. So there's something really interesting to me about that.
The dogman phenomena that's also being cited around the United States and I guess probably different parts of the world as well. Have you put any research or time into examining those stories or case files?
So I'm going to do a new show called Expedition Dogman. It's no, I'm just kidding.
Sign me up. I'm in. I'll go. I'm gonna wear one of those big bubble suits, but I'll go.
It's a pretty good title, right? Like,
Yeah. Who would have saw that coming?
no, but I've had a lot, I've had people come to me and say, this is the experience I've had. And that is not an area that I have. I mean, even how I got into Bigfoot, I wasn't pursuing this, right? I was
just scrolling through Tinder and you saw him. I know.
That's right. Swipe. Oh, wait. This one looks interesting, but the picture's blurry. I can't tell.
I like woodland creatures and long walks off short piers.
But no, I was brought onto the team not because I had any, Bigfoot research experience, because I really didn't. And in fact, I must have turned it down 50 times over because of that. I just thought, this is not what I do. I don't really know about. And it was because they wanted to ground the expedition in science and have somebody there who's made a scientific discovery and knows how to process the evidence and the findings and, DNA and all of these different things. And having the field experience is super, super important. You do need to be very knowledgeable about these surroundings and, the food resources and behavior, all of these things. So it weirdly made perfect sense, because I had spent like 2 decades in search of incredibly rare primates. A lot of them had never been studied before. Some of them had never even been photographed. And so when I started applying the techniques that I used on those expeditions with Bigfoot, it was funny because a lot of the Bigfoot researchers were already employing those techniques. So there is a really nice overlap that way. And then trying to bring, some more of that into the Bigfoot community and into that world, having all this access to technology that, it's almost like unheard of. Mm-hmm. And it gives you such an edge, especially when you have a limited amount of time and a vast amount of space, right? You can more eyes, you cover more ground, all of that. But it's not something that I was actively researching. So I have not looked into Dogman much, other than I've heard some of the stories. But I'll make you a deal, Dave. When I find Bigfoot, I will then jump into the Dogman scene, one cryptid at a time. I'm a one cryptid type of girl. You know what I mean? I'm gonna stick to Bigfoot now. Yeah. And if I have a good payoff moment there, then I'm gonna pursue Dogman. How's that?
All right. I see how you are fickle. Once you find the one you've been going for, then you're done and move on to the next. That's nice to know. Good. Good.
You heard it here first, except you didn't.
I will be happy to join you out in one of these expeditions. No, I would love to go out to a place that's known, but I'd rather go with somebody like you and somebody that knows what they're doing out in the field and can tell me. So when I hear the whooping or the screams, you can say, Dave, that's just a dormouse. That's their normal.
Dave, I think we should take this show into the woods. And we do a live broadcast, me and you out in the woods at night, analyzing these sounds and looking for Bigfoot.
I'm all. Can we start in the woods right behind my house? It's only about a quarter of an acre, but it's mine. And I feel safe starting off. It's baby steps. It's just the way it's got to go. And then that way, if I get scared, I can run back in. We can make s'mores. We can make a night out of it anyway.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no reason I've got to be uncomfortable cryptid hunting, right? No, this is awesome. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for taking this seriously, because there are people that really love this field and are fascinated by it. And they love the fact that there is a show that is out there. And I'm not saying the other shows haven't shown passion and love, but I do not feel that any show has been as well represented as your show, Expedition Bigfoot. In really, you can show the fun side, you can show some of the interesting elements of it, but that you are all legitimately trying to seek an answer.
And in all seriousness, that was one of the things that I really liked, is to really lend scientific voice to this topic, because people shouldn't be ridiculed for reporting on things that we are, it may be out there, right? So we're just hindering the scientific process by by ostracizing them and not making them feel welcome to share these stories. But I'm going to let you into one last tiny secret, and that is, some of the scientific community was like outraged that I would participate in a Bigfoot expedition. I mean, that's just
why? Because they weren't asked?
Because the highbrow nature of the game, let's face it, right? A lot of scientists, like they if it doesn't fit into a box and can be explained readily, it's dismissed, right? But I want to tell you about all the other scientists who did reach out to me privately, right? DM, to say, I am so glad you're taking this on, because I really think that Bigfoot is out there, or they've had an experience, or they know that somebody in their family who they love and trust has had an experience. So I think it's really important that scientists really do start getting involved. Listen, whether you prove it one way or the other, whatever it is, but get involved, right? Like have a voice in the game.
And again, what's so funny to me is the dismissive nature of science on so many things, when at one point people didn't believe in the gorilla. People thought it was a myth. And that's not that, like, within the last 200 years. It
was less than 200 years ago that we were able to suddenly identify, oh, look, there's a Western lowland gorilla, right? Which is sort of crazy to think about, because that's also a very big animal that just had not been identified.
And I remember 20 years ago shaving my head and being bald with a goatee, and everybody said, you look like Charles Manson. What's wrong with you? And now everybody does it. So see, it's breaking boundaries. It's going through the glass roof and finding something else. I just keep
You're a risk taker, Dave. I like it. Yeah, you were ahead of your time.
In my own little way. Hey, make sure to get a copy of the book, Just Wild Enough. And we've got a link for it on tonight's program guide. Again, get this book. If you love the children in your life, then you should get this book. If you don't, shame on you. Shame on you. Pick up this book and share it with them, because we should be sharing excellent role models with our children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and beyond, so that they can see there is an amazing world out there to be discovered. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Mayor, and I hope that we get a chance to go out and investigate sometime soon.
Oh, we're gonna.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
I will hold you to it. And folks, go check out the swag shop, paranormal60swagshop.com. Find all the coolest Bigfoot merchandise that we have to offer. It's all available now. And I think if you order now, you'll still get it in plenty of time for the holidays. So go check that out. I want to thank our guest. I also want to say, it's an amazing world full of new discoveries. For those of you that have a hard time believing in the concept of these cryptids, remember that every year we are discovering new insects, new monkeys, new everything. There are different things out there every day that are being seen, photographed, reported, and found. So we are just really kind of still in the genesis point of understanding the world around us. And we can't be so quick to dismiss things that just don't fit our paradigm. I hope that the information that we share here is enlightening and makes you feel like the dark is just a little bit more light, that you too can go on this journey of an education and enlightenment and enjoy yourself as we learn about these crazy things that are all around the world, cited by every walk of life, every religious belief, financial situation, sexuality. Doesn't matter who you are. If you stay awake and you stay open, you can see the magic that surrounds us. So I hope for you this year that you get to see some of that magic, and it begins tonight right here on the Paranormal 60 with Dave Schrader. Hey, everybody, I'm here. It's me, Bigfoot. Oh, no. I missed it again. Doggone it.